Hello everybody, Gamer here, because you guys like me milking Persona 5 content more than Atlus releasing a billion spin-offs. Here's a special video where we're gonna go through the prologue of Persona 5 Royal's story and check some unique things by manipulating the camera to look anywhere we want and check out of bounds. I'll try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible for those who are just getting into this game, and if you haven't played it, I highly recommend getting yourself a physical or digital copy of Persona 5 Royal, which should be available on all current modern platforms. Anyway, with that said, let's infiltrate the heart of this game. So here we are at the casino escaping from the police, and because of the fixed camera angle, you cannot see directly below you, but if you could find 4 low-poly Shujin student models down here. These are models that roam the world of Persona 5 and cannot be physically interacted with, but they create the illusion of a populated world. But what's so off is why there's 4 Shujin students here in the first place, because if you look anywhere else, the low detail models are all adults, but you got 4 rare cases of students who appear just underneath Joker. Since the camera is in a fixed position, it's impossible to see these students in normal gameplay, so that's likely why they never got removed. My best guess is that maybe they were placeholders, but I can only speculate. And when the guards notice Joker, there's not too much to this scene. They appear, then disappear once you click through the dialogue. And the door that they went through has a small purple room that is covered by black, but there's really not much to see back here. Now, it was hard to get a shot of Joker doing his stunts when facing up against the shadows as the camera gets tilted during these shots, but the one thing that you can see is that when he rips off the mask, Joker is suspended in the air before he comes back down to start the battle. And the battles themselves are separate maps from the maps that you explore in, because while the area around us is similar, the area we came from is only a big 2D texture. And after the Shadow's defeat, Joker does a few flips and gets up to the top area. However, one of the shadows that attacked us is still down here, and by physically moving the player's position down there, we can see that it does nothing as you can't physically interact with the shadow. Through the hallways, there's this one interesting bit of the wall that you can barely see in normal gameplay, and by taking the camera over there, it almost looks like a poorly textured cardboard box or something laying up against the wall. Although, having a closer look, I think what's actually happening is that a portion of the wall is cut out and you're actually looking into the void. So yeah, for a brief moment in normal gameplay, you can actually see into the void. And in the room where you have to sneak and hide past this one guard, we can see where he really runs. And he just so happens to have the Persona powers to run through walls and disappear once we click through Oracle's final dialogue box. And past this guard where we get the grappling hook introduction, we can see where the stairs lead, and it only shows what the developers need to show as we were never intended to go up these stairs. During the scene where we get Yoshizawa's introduction, we can see how the scene is pulled off, and you can tell that there's a lot of camera trickery going on here, as looking at her fighting and shooting shadows from a distance is really not that impressive looking, and both the depth of field and lighting is constantly changing to make the scene itself look good when it's at the intended camera position.
Let's do this, senpai!
Now, after Yoshizawa's introduction and battle, you are meant to go up these stairs and that's it. However, by taking the camera up these stairs, you can see an unused pathway that goes on for quite a bit before coming to another set of stairs where it ends. I guess they wanted the hallway to be a bit longer, or maybe they had some extra tutorial that they wanted to show off, but I guess they felt it was necessary to keep it short for the sake of keeping the intro at a fast pace. Also, fun fact, after you do Yoshizawa's battle, the 2 officers that move downstairs are reset to their original positions, so the question is, what would happen if you were to interact with them again? Well, by setting the player's position, we can open the door and walk down the hiding tutorial and the triggers are no longer functioning. So we can now get a size scale of Joker compared to that of an adult, and hoo boy, Joker would not last long if he was captured by one of these guys. And usually when you get to the grappling hook part, you are forced to use it with no ways of moving, but when you pass this trigger, we can see an unused dialogue where Oracle tells you that if you get any closer, they will find you, causing Joker to walk back. This was likely meant to be the original way of figuring out how to use the grappling hook instead of forcing the player to stand in place and press a button. Next, Joker ends up in the interrogation room, and there's some unique things seen off camera. After the men in black here drug him, they wake Joker up with a bucket of water. However, we can see an unseen animation of the guy waterbending some water onto Joker without using a bucket. And as they cut to different camera angles, we can see the splashes of water change positions between the walls and the floor. Also, one thing you can't see is the tools they torture Joker with. We can find trays of bloody gauzes along with pliers and syringes. This is never seen, but yeah, Joker took more than just some kicks and drugs. This is likely unseen, either because it was considered too brutal, or maybe with the less brutality you see in the prologue, the more conflicted the player will be to decide if Joker's actions are truly just. And by taking the camera outside of the interrogation room, we can find a hallway which leads to an elevator, along with another hallway with an elevator beside it, likely being two different floors as a particular character uses the elevator after Sai's interrogation with Joker late into the story. Now, when you enter your name, you get a red HUD that looks pretty seamless with the board that Joker is writing on. How this is pulled off is that the entire back of the board turns red, and it uses the exact same colors as the one red HUD line. And for the record, Joker signs absolutely nothing. Even a rebel off camera. Now, the one thing I find interesting when Sai Nijima comes to interrogate Joker, Joker is not inside the interrogation room, which makes sense since he's not needed for the current shots in this scene, but once she enters the room and sits down, the guards who stand outside remain there for a long time till the fade to black. When the butterfly talks to Joker, we can see that he and the chair are out of bounds beyond where the interrogation room actually is. And as I proceeded to record footage for this video, I accidentally saved over my New Game Plus file, meaning I would have to start from scratch again if I want to fight the Velvet Room attendants. Well, oh well, I already 100%ed this game on the PS4 without DLC. I see no bragging right to do it again on Steam with DLC. I may love this game, but I ain't that religious to complete everything again. Now that it's April 9th, we can go out of bounds at the starting area of Yoganjaya's subway station, and we can see that once the train reaches a certain point, it resets its position on the opposite side of the track, and then it just snaps back onto the rail as the train comes in again, making an endless loop of the most convenient waiting time I've ever seen for a transit system. Once we enter the back streets and search for Sujiro, exclusive to the Royal version, we can see Tai Takemi walk to her clinic, and here, we can see just how far she goes before she wishes her existence out of this painful and meaningless life. There's not too much to see with Yoganjaya, other than showing that there's no cars on the overpass that you probably didn't even know was there, because not many players look up with the camera when exploring the city. One thing we can see with this alleyway cat that hides around LeBlanc is that it will run straight into some black textures that form a triangle, creating a simple illusion of depth. And once we go inside of LeBlanc, we can see that when the elderly couple leave, the old man goes through the door, and the door only opens briefly for the elderly woman, likely so they can get the sound effect of the bell from the door. Now, the one unique thing with LeBlanc is that the downstairs and upstairs are parallel to each other, so your room is just beyond the back of the shop and not directly above the shop. And when we look below both rooms, we can see objects that are stored out of bounds that get put to use during certain cutscenes or moments in the storyline. One example would be the set of infiltration tools just below Joker's desk, coffee makers, a piece of the telephone with its cord sticking outwards, and a particular painting that you will recover after the second palace. And this white translucent texture that is below the front door that I don't know what it's used for. Maybe it gets placed behind the door during a particular time of the day or weather or something, I'm not sure. Here, we can see an overview shot of Joker's hometown, and while there's not too much to see around here, there's one weird oddity with Shido's car. As you can see, it looks completely fine, but after the cut to black, the lighting from the headlights intensify, and now there's two cars in place. So yeah, whenever you watch this cutscene, there's actually two cars clipping into each other at the same time.
Get in the car!
Which car? Also, here's what the inside of Shido's face looks like. Very hollow, just like his promises to make Japan a better country. Speaking of going inside heads, let's get some nightmare fuel by looking inside of Joker's head. Now, I'm no game designer, but I believe what you see are all the possible expressions that Joker can give inside of his head, as the current expression he has on the outside differs from what it looks like on the inside. That, or it's just an overlay of textures being used. I'm pretty sure someone who's a game designer will tell me what it is. Anyway, through the eyes of Joker, we can see him delete the app off his phone. Or at least make no effort to try to. So if you wonder why he ended up in a castle later on, it's simply because Joker does not know how to uninstall an app on his phone. Anyway, the next stop is the Velvet Room. Now, this cutscene shares the exact same map as the Velvet Room we go to when we do fusions, and here we can see just how the Velvet Room actually works. By going out of bounds, we can see that there's a bigger and second Velvet Room behind Joker at all times, and a cage behind Igor, and a bit of a pathway beside Joker's cell. Now, very late into the game, we can enter into this cell to get to other parts of the Velvet Room, but that takes place on a completely different map, which is why it leads to nowhere in this map. Now, located out of bounds behind Igor, you can find a locked jail cell, and this is actually where the Persona lockdowns take place, which requires you to have rank 3 with Caroline and Justine's confidant in order to unlock it. Now, directly behind Joker is another Velvet Room, and while some of you might think this is where you fight the twins on New Game Plus, I can assure you that takes place on a different map entirely. If you have a keen eye, you may notice that this is actually where the cutscenes for executions take place, which makes sense as you may notice that those cutscenes take place on a much larger room than the one that you see from Joker's cell. Although, the one thing that is always unseen is a Velvet logo hidden beneath the floor in the second Velvet Room. As far as I'm aware, this hidden logo never gets used at all, and it's theorized to be connected to an unused event. Now, don't worry, as this next part is not spoilers, but there's an unused map of the Velvet Room where the floor is cracked and you can see this logo beneath the floor. This particular map never gets used, and there's never a moment in the story where the Velvet Room turns into this. You could probably theorize what point of the story this event could have taken place in, as my best guess is that it would have happened during the 8th palace of the game, but we can only speculate what this unused room was going to be for and what this hidden logo was going to be used for. On April 10th, when Joker and Sojiro go to see the principal and our homeroom teacher, we appear in what is actually a 2D backdrop, with only the desk, chair, and characters being the 3D models in the room. There are numerous cutscenes and locations throughout all of Persona 5 that uses 2D textures like this as a faster way of developing a location faster, as creating a 3D environment would be very expensive and time consuming. And you can tell that there's plenty of camera trickery going on here, as Kawakami is actually inside of the desk as opposed to standing right next to the principal. And when she places Joker's ID and the suspicious looking ad on the desk, nothing is actually placed there, so Joker ends up spawning the ID out of nowhere. And the one cool thing is that some cutscenes like this one don't use the full map of the explorable school, as evident by the lack of outdoor visuals at the entrance, and almost the entirety of floors 2 and 3 being deleted, as usually the school is rendered all at once in normal gameplay. You could even see the numbers for the floors floated in the air, as they clearly did not delete everything in the school. And with the school rooftop doors still being there and the cherry blossom trees still out in the courtyard, you could tell that they did not go all out in minimizing the environment. Now, thankfully, Kawakami manages to escape the horrors of the principal's desk, but walks into something even more horrid: Kamoshida. And if you hold on her final dialogue box, we can see just how far Kamoshida goes. He turns his head, and then... Kamoshida? Kamoshida? Are you okay? Oh no. Looks like we need to change his heart, guys. Kamoshida is broken. Anyway, here's what the inside of a pervert's mind looks like, just as hollow as Shido's. Now, we're riding on wheels in the middle of traffic with Sojiro, or at least that's how it looks from this camera angle. In actuality, the traffic is really not that bad. It's just the one asshole driver in front of us who refuses to move. And when we look at Sojiro's car, Wow, this is the most pathetic car you could ever afford, Sojiro. No wonder why we barely see you use it. So, how does it function without wheels? Oh, simple. Sojiro does the steering, and Joker has to Flintstone their way back to the cafe. Poor kid, he just cannot catch a break. And yeah, Sojiro is clearly behind on technology because he thinks you have to hold your phone by piercing your fingers through the back. That is not how you use a phone, Sojiro. And when he goes to leave out of shame, he stops for a moment and disappears out of existence while his hat remains stationary till the fade out. But before we can head to bed, Sojiro calls the cafe's old yellow telephone, and here is where we see how it really works. The piece of the telephone that gets extended out gets used by Joker in the cutscene, while the part of the telephone that is hanged up gets stored underneath. And after we talk to Sojiro, the two phone models get switched back in position. And once again, Joker does not delete the app off his phone, nor reboot it when he goes back to sleep. After Joker pretends to eat Sojiro's icky curry, we have to manually walk to school without fast travel, and here's a good time to see what the environments on the way are like. When Joker is cramped into the subway car, we can see just how little the train actually exists and how the passing trains work as it goes past us, then stops once it reaches the end of the tunnel. And as you can see, the car is not as cramped as it seems, as there's plenty of seats for Joker to use. In fact, the NPCs here are not even sitting down, they are standing through the seats. Well then why the hell are you hogging up the seats if you don't plan to sit down? And when we reach Shibuya subway station, we can see that the underground walkway and the platform below are rendered all at once. In fact, the only thing that does change going between the floors is rendering the NPCs into the current floor you're on. Here's a close-up of the pigeon, and enjoy it while it lasts because Joker loves to scare them away. If we take the camera over to Shibuya Crossing beyond the Station Square area, we can see just how low level of detail it becomes the further you get away from the walkable area. But oh boy, the Ginza Line gate holds a lot of cool things out of bounds. Just above the stairs, we can find posters for the Halloween festival that likely gets used in late October, as there are legit Halloween decorations and citizens in costumes around Halloween Day. In fact, you can find a lot of these textures and posters just floating out of bounds above the map. Though, which ones go used or unused, I can't say for sure. Beyond the tellers, we can find one unseen low-detailed NPC on his phone, clearly calling for help on how he can get back to the reality he once knew. Down below, we can find what I think are lighting effects that get used or maybe unused on the windows, but when you look from one side, they don't seem to function properly. Again, I'm no game design expert, so feel free to comment what these might be. And if you saw the Boundary Break episode on the original Persona 5 by She Says, you might be familiar with this oddity. By going down to the end where you meet up with your friends for the second hideout, you can find a section of the floor with a strange moire effect. And this was left untouched for Royal since you can barely see a pixel of this floor in normal gameplay. Though why this effect occurs, again, I'm no game design expert, but I guess it has to do with the textures not being laid across the model correctly or something. I gotta say, it's strange how the Ginza line holds the most interesting out-of-bounds secrets so far. Now, in the area where you first meet Ryuji, you can see that this map was designed with certain camera angles in mind, as looking anywhere else doesn't seem to have anything in existence, although at some point in development, it seems like this place was meant to be explorable at one point. If you hack yourself into this map, it seems like the NPCs walk upwards on one side of the street as if they're using the stairs in the back, and by heading in this direction, you could head to the school. And by checking out the bookstore that Joker and On used as an undercover to get out of the rain, there's a button prompt to check out the store, but nothing happens if you examine the bookstore. And by going over to the train station, nothing happens and it soft locks the game. Possibly because the button prompt says ride train, but there's no train to ride on. So what we got left of the area now is just exclusive to cutscenes only. Now, once we reach Kamoshida's castle, we get a slim look at the school briefly. However, regardless of where the camera is pointed to, that image remains the same as it was made with that one camera angle in mind. Now, Kamoshida's foyer looks about the same as it does in normal gameplay. You can see that the painting on the front has two different sides to it, as you will find out much later into the palace, and the chain that you pull to activate the elevator to the third wheel seat seems to already have its cogwheels turning already, which is quite odd. But later on, I also noticed that the cages are open too, which you usually have to pull the levers for to open them. And as the shadows come in and apprehend Ryuji and Joker, you can see that they kinda just spawn in when they are needed. Inside the jail cell, there's not too much to see out of bounds, as what you see is mostly what you get, but the one cool thing is how some things that are implied off camera can happen off camera or not happen at all. For example, when Ryuji goes to bang on the cell door, there's no animation of him banging on the cell door, but the character model still moves its mouth to the dialogue despite it being off screen.
Hey, let us out of here! I know there's someone out there! Damn it! Where are we? Is this some kind of movie set?
When Ryuji gets beaten up, it turns out it really is a TV set, as Kamoshida keeps missing his punches on Ryuji. And once it transitions to the next scene, it's a different map entirely, as the X, Y, and Z coordinates of the cell are different on this map, and a good chunk of the prison is deleted to run this cutscene. Now, the one thing I find weird in this cutscene version of the map is this weird zero-looking object in the next cell. This object does not appear in the explorable map, and I can't think of what this object may have been tied to. I thought maybe it was part of the chains in the next cell that didn't get deleted, but I don't think that's the case. Now, because of how cramped this cell is, there's a lot of creative liberties to be able to have 6 different character models in this room at once, as you'll see as I play these clips. You'll either have Kamoshida walking over Ryuji, Ryuji's feet clipping through the wall, Kamoshida's cape doing weird positions, or character models disappearing temporarily till they are needed. Although the cool thing about this scene is the model for the shadows. Because the sword and the shield are part of the character models, when the knights hold Joker up against the wall, their sword or shield will be on the other side of the wall, and the shadow that holds Ryuji up against the wall will have his shield on the other side of the wall. In fact, to prove that they are connected to the character models, when Joker is having his awakening moment, you can see the sword and shield on the outside of the wall move with the character models as they continue to hold Joker in place.
Thou art willing to perform all sacrilegious acts for thine own justice. Call upon my name and release thy rage. Show the strength of thy will to ascertain all on thine own, though thou be chained to hell itself. Execute him!
Execute who? The wall? What did the wall do to you, Kamoshida? Anyway, after the animated cutscene, which I can't see from different angles, there's 3 shadows on the floor and 2 of them turn into Pyro Jacks. However, we can find their sword and shield under the map, and as they transform, you can see the effect it has on the sword and shield down below. After our battle against the Pyro Jacks, we can see that Kamoshida is actually vibing and walking on the spot. Not only does he do this in the real world, but he does this in his distorted palace too. I guess he's just grooving to the music or something? Who knows? Well, Ryuji hated the dance so much that when he pushes Kamoshida to the ground, he slides all the way underground into the next cell. I mean, damn, Ryuji! I know you are a physical attack user of the group, but you were impressive before you had awakened to your persona. But after you tell Ryuji to get the key, Kamoshida spawns back into the cell, and here's something you may not have noticed. Their book bags are placed up against this barrel, but despite Joker and Ryuji holding their book bags after leaving the cell, those book bags remain against the barrel for the rest of this cutscene.
Goddamn thieves! After them! Don't let them escape!
Oh, don't worry, Kamoshida. Those thieves aren't going anywhere. They are too busy mimicking Barrel-chan here. Seriously, it's the little details you never notice on multiple playthroughs, and only now have I noticed a rolling barrel in the water here. Now, I know this next part will be too obvious, but I'm sure some dumbasses who don't know how video games work might be asking what happens to Joker when you go through the crawl space. Well, as you might have already known, the character crouches and the model disappears, and doesn't reappear again until you emerge from either side. Underwhelming fact, but you'll be surprised how many people never consider how this works. Now, as we try to escape, there's a stairway leading down to 3 shadows down here. By taking the camera down there, there's really not much. There's a bit of a pathway you cannot see, but there was never an intention for you coming down here. And once you get near the spiral stairs, 2 guards will run and kind of slide instantly into their positions, although trying to go back and get caught by them doesn't work. So by resetting Joker's position on the other side of the water, we can see what happens if we interact with these shadows, and while they do function like guards patrolling, they are not programmed to notice or attack you, and you cannot attack these shadows. Now, when you go and find Morgana's jail cell, you can already see this for yourself in normal gameplay by moving the camera in the right position, but Morgana is nowhere to be seen in the cell, and isn't seen till the cutscene starts. Meanwhile, Kawakami is in the faculty room, which I think only gets shown from one angle and appears about 3 times in the entire story. But here, we can see what the other side of the room looks like, what you barely get to see. And the other 2 character models in this room are low-detailed teachers, with one standing through their chair and the other having their feet in an empty box. Now back in the prison, there's actually 2 interesting things I found out of bounds. One is this bit of grass that is just under the safe room, but through the other door on the right beside the safe room is an empty room with a sparkling effect in the middle of the floor. This sparkling effect is exclusive to cutscenes only and is not visible during gameplay. Now, I have no idea what this could have been, but I do have a theory. This sparkling effect reminds me of the shining effect you find on some maps you obtain throughout the palaces. My theory is that this room was possibly going to be used to obtain at least a portion of the map of Kamoshida's palace, and it would have been cutscene exclusive, or maybe it was gameplay exclusive, but only removed it in the state when you're in gameplay mode. But they likely scrapped this location as the place to obtain the map, so what we're left with is this unseen glowing spot that cannot be seen in normal gameplay, and it's impossible to see during a cutscene without hacking the camera. Now, the last interesting thing before we leave Kamoshida's palace is how the books on the bookshelf work and the outdoor we see through the ventilation shaft. By looking through the shaft, we can see a portion of the outside, but by having a more thorough look, this image is so massive that you can't see all of it. In fact, it's so massive that not only can you see the drawbridge, but also a glimpse of Caroline in front of the Velvet Room, which doesn't become visible till you start your official infiltration as early as April 18th. This is impossible to see, so it's interesting how they considered the possibility that you might have been able to see Caroline at all. Now, directly below the bookshelf that Ryuji climbs is a mess of books, and similar to the telephone in LeBlanc, this has a similar function of swapping the models on the bookshelf. So when Ryuji climbs and knocks the books off the shelf during the Fade to Black, those models are swapped and we have the neatly placed books placed underneath the bookshelf while the messy stack is used for the cutscene. And as Joker and Ryuji make their escape, they don't crawl through the ventilation shaft, but rather slide right next to it.
Those 2 seem useful.
And after being scolded by the cops for skipping class, Joker heads to the school first, and we can see just how far Joker goes and... Aw, what a nice friend. He waits for Ryuji to catch up. Joker truly comes with the best boyfriend material. Meanwhile, the SIU director's office suffers from the same reality as the principal's office, with the only 3D models being the desk, chair, and the character models. But unlike the principal's office, where all of it is done from one camera angle, the SIU director's office has 3 different camera angles. One pointing at his desk, one being an overview shot of the city, and one with Shido's face on the TV screen. Now, once Joker and Ryuji arrive at the school and get scolded by the school counselor, not much magic happens other than the counselor and Kamoshida popping into existence, but at the end when Ryuji goes with the counselor gets half of his model sucked into the ground, and Ryuji floats a little bit above the stairs before coming back down to the ground, and waiting to make sure that Joker gets into the school. Aw, he truly is best boy. So yeah, every time you talk to Kamoshida at the end of this cutscene, you can find the counselor just off to the side halfway through the ground, and both the counselor and Ryuji stay in those positions till the cutscene is over. And that will be the end of this video, as that pretty much covers the prologue of Persona 5 Royal. If you would like to see more, or just want to see more content from It's a Gamer, be sure to give this video a like, comment, and subscribe, and ding the bell for more It's a Gamer content. Stay tuned for the next video, and if you excuse me, I gotta figure out how to ride my car with no wheels.